out of patience. And today, Recep Tayyip Erdogan couldn't have been more clear. Early this morning, hundreds of riot police charged into empty Istanbul's Taksim Square of the protesters who've been there for nearly 2 weeks. They used tear gas, rubber bullets and water cannon. And this raid came as something of a surprise. Just last night, Erdogan's government agreed to meet with the protest leaders. Today, though, he said he had no more tolerance for their actions.
I urge young people, who I believe are there with sincere feelings, to put an end to this protest. To those who insist on continuing, my message is that this is over. We will not put up with this any longer.
All right, well, before we get to tonight's panel, let's cross directly to Istanbul and our correspondent there, Jasper Mortimer. He's been covering these protests for us from the beginning. Jasper, just describe the situation for us now. Apologies, we don't have Jasper Mortimer, it turns out. We'll try and get back to him a little later in the programme. Well, let's then meet tonight's guest. Here on my right, Evren Küçükkaya from the Observatory of the Black Gulf and Mediterranean Seas is here. He's a Turkey specialist. Thanks for being with us. On my left, Arnaud Castagnet. Now, you've been analysing the media coverage of what's been going on in Turkey for your organisation, June 21st, right?
Yeah.
OK, we'll talk a bit about that in a moment. That's certainly an interesting angle. Alexandre Delval is a professor and also the author of The Turkish Dilemma. Thanks for being with us. We look forward to talking to you in a moment. And Riva Castorino. I hope I got that right.
Castoriano.
I'm sorry, I missed out a syllable. I'm terribly sorry. You're a professor, I should say, at Sciences Po, and you've also written a book about Turkey. It's called Turkey Between Nationalism and Globalisation. Last but not least, joining us tonight from the UK, Zia Miral is a research associate at the Foreign Policy Centre. Good evening to you all. We've got a full house tonight, so let's get straight to it. And we do now have Jasper Mortimer. There you go. So before we talk to you, let's get to Jasper. Jasper, just describe for us what's going on now following that big raid by the riot police earlier.
Well, Laura, the protesters announced through social media that people should demonstrate everywhere in Turkey this evening in solidarity with the protesters who were tear gas and water cannoned this morning. And certainly here in Istanbul, they have come out in thousands. And there must be 5,000 people in the square there beneath me, and probably an equal number under the trees in Gezi Park, but I can't confirm that because the trees obscure them. What is interesting is that the police are maintaining their presence. If you look over there to the north side of the square, in front of the Atatürk Cultural Centre, you can see the police ranked 4-5 deep. The police are beginning to fire tear gas. There are 9 police water cannon trucks over there. Those are the cracks of tear gas canisters. You can see them soaring into the air now. They are chasing the people away. The canisters are soaring over the crowd. They're going deep into the crowd. They're clearly trying to drive the protesters out of the crowd. One of the tear gas canisters has now landed in the park. Another one has landed in the park. Previously, the governor of Istanbul had a third one in the park, fourth one in the park. Previously, the authorities have given their word they would not attack the protesters in the park. The park is thick with tents and ropes supporting banners, and if the police trigger a stampede in the park, then a lot of ugly things will happen because the people will get entangled with the ropes and the tent material. People are fleeing all over the square now. There's a thick crowd of tear gas sweeping across the square.
Who's caught up in that tear gas?
To us just now.
Who's caught up in that tear gas that we're looking at on our screens right now, Jasper?
There must be about 5,000 people 5,000 people under the square, in the square, Laura. They are now rushing to the exits. There are still hundreds of people in the center of the square. The police water cannon trucks are advancing. I can see one spraying the crowd with water cannon now, and behind it is a phalanx, hundreds of riot policemen in white helmets are now advancing across the square.
Was any warning given, Jasper, before that huge volley of tear gas was just set off there?
No warning was given. The crowd was chanting anti-government slogans. The crowd looked peaceful. They were not throwing rocks at the policemen because they were very close to the policemen. There wasn't the normal standoff confrontation with about 100 meters in between the two sides. They were right up next to the policemen, chanting and singing anti-government slogans.
Are people
water
still
cannon
hanging on in there?
are deployed. No, the people are leaving. They're putting their shirts and blouses over their mouths and noses to protect them from tear gas inhalation. More tear gas canisters are being fired. I would say it's unnecessary since the people are clearly fleeing headlong to the side streets. Whoa, that's another 5 or 6 tear gas canisters have landed in front of this building. The tear gas canisters are landing among the people fleeing away. Some of the protesters are bravely picking up the tear gas canisters and throwing them back at the police, but they don't have the range. They're just throwing them in the police's direction. The police, hundreds of police, are walking solidly across the square from north to south, and with the people in the front firing tear gas canisters, and 1 or 2 water cannon trucks in front of the police spraying the crowd. Most of the crowd appears to have been dispersed now to the side streets. But as you can see, the police are still firing tear gas. Really, it's stragglers. You know, it's not necessary to use tear gas to shoo away 10, 20 people.
And Jasper, given what you know from what you've been doing this week, do you think those people are suffering now? Are people in pain? Are people being injured by that police response there?
Well, tear gas does burn your throat and your eyes and your nostrils. I can tell that from personal experience. I went to the health clinics in this park this morning and asked them how many casualties they had. They said they'd treated about 50 people for tear gas inhalation. 6 to 7 people were seriously injured and that they'd been hit by the canisters. And they said one person was hit in the head and he died. So tear gas can be lethal.
Jasper, we're going to have to leave it there. Some very dramatic scenes that we are seeing live on our screens coming to us from Istanbul. There, and you saw what looked really like a last push by the riot police there, just sending in volleys of tear gas. People, last stragglers, Jasper called them, leaving Taksim Square and leaving. Let's get some reaction from my guests who are here with me in the studio. Evren Kucukar, I'd like to start with you. Just how do you feel looking at that on your screens?
I really don't know how to feel because it's a hard position for the both sides. For the protesters, they are trying to demonstrate protest peacefully, but government don't let them. They think this is a show of power. They want to use this as a show of power, and by the side of government, it's hard too, because they have authority and they don't want to lose it.
Zia Morel, in London, we just saw that unfolding before our very eyes. Jasper Mortimer said it was unnecessary what the police did there. Do you think that was a bit too heavy-handed?
Sadly, from where I look at the issue, it's very difficult to assess. But yes, the authorities have said they will not interfere in protests today. However, they already arrested around 70 people this morning around Taksim Square. There have been some examples of rather dangerous groups trying to provoke a different sort of protest tonight. But by and large, the protesters tonight are actually peaceful supporters of the initial Gezi core group. So we would all automatically be inclined to think that actually perhaps the police again is demonstrating an unhanded and over-the-top reaction again to protests.
Riva Castellano, I heard you take a sharp intake of breath there when you were seeing what was going on your screens. Were you shocked by that?
Yes, but it's expectable. I mean, I'm not surprised, but not maybe at this moment. It has been like this from the beginning, and I feel sorry that they don't let any democratic protest taking place in Istanbul, and it's peaceful and it has a claim. And it was a legitimate claim, and there was no use of using police force in this situation, not what we have seen on the screen.
Now,
at that moment, I mean, I didn't see why. And even the journalist was surprised. Oh, God, it's coming, he says. And it came suddenly because they were just standing there, 5,000 people.
Right, and Jasper knows how it feels because he's been on the wrong side of a tear gas canister this week himself.
I want to add something for this. It's not these demonstrations is not only in Istanbul. In different 77 cities of Turkey, they protest demonstrated, and all of them, not all of them, but most of them, police forces used unnecessary and overhanded force against the protesters.
Who do you blame for this? Do you blame Erdogan directly, or do you think this is overzealous police chiefs?
The problem is not to blame, but I'm surprised that we are surprised just now. Yeah. I have been describing Erdogan authoritarian background for 10 years, since the beginning, and I was blamed to be anti-Turk. Mm-hmm. And I knew that secularists and Alevis in Turkey were agreed with me, but just the West for a policy appeasement, an appeasement policy in the name of an appeasement policy to join, European Union, to help Turkey to enter European Union. We didn't want to speak about that. When in Russia it happened things like that, everybody says it's a fascist or Stalinian Russia. But when we have put to jail more than 100 journalists, free thinkers in jail since 10 years in Turkey. Nobody spoke about that until just 2 weeks ago. It's strange. I was the only one in my book who spoke about that, and I was blamed. And I am very surprised that it took so long time to understand that this guy is absolutely not a democrat.
But what about those that say Erdogan was elected?
You know that he said that a democracy is like a train. You use it like you want, and you stop when you want.
Okay, but
he said it in a speech.
This began peacefully as a protest to protect trees, really, wasn't it? It was about environmentalists wanting to protect their park.
Not only trees, they wanted to build a garrison, which destroyed the idea of secularity. It's a symbolic neo-Ottoman garrison and the symbol was against the young Turks who wanted to introduce the first secular policy in 1909.
Okay, but rightly or wrongly,
it's a very symbolic
but rightly or wrongly, an elected government, an elected official does have the right, with checks and balances of Parliament, to go ahead and build in cities.
Yes, in the head of Erdogan, yes, and it's not stupid.
But it has become something else, hasn't it?
He's not stupid. He says, I want to win election within 1 year. I want to please to my elector, who want the headscarf, who want a theocratic new Ottoman Turkey. I don't want to please to the minority who lost elections. It's a very cynical point of view, but it's the game. It's what plays Erdogan.
And what about when he says he has half the country behind him? 50% of Turks voted for him. He's been re-elected 3 times with an ever stronger majority each time.
Perhaps it is a mistake. He's very arrogant.
Last time there were riots in Turkey in 2007, he called an election and he was elected with a landslide.
Yes. 40.
How is he not a democratically elected leader? Why is he an autocrat?
Yes.
Okay. I want to make it clear. The political party of AKP didn't get 50%. It is all about the system of election in Turkey. There is a limit of 10%. If you cannot get 10% of votes, your votes directly written to AKP, the party leader party. In the reality, AKP took between 29 and 32% of votes. But all others.
But he's won the elections every time.
Yes, the other thing, like you mentioned, they got the let's say it's true, they got the 50% of the votes, but the thing they do, I think it's a mistake. They are ignoring and forgetting the other 50% of the
didn't vote for him. Okay, Anna Kestin, I want to bring you in because, of course, we know that it takes more than elections to make a democracy, of course. But I want to talk about the allegations about the crackdown on journalists in particular. You've been looking at how these protests have been covered. We've all seen on our screens, we saw it right there, what has been going on. Has the government been actively trying to stop these images from being broadcast around the world?
Yes, I mean, we. I think all of us have seen the example of CNN Turk, who is broadcasting documentaries on penguins while there are demonstrators just out in the streets. We must think also about the fact that Erdogan government and the police have been trying to control the social media. For instance, 33 people in Izmir have been arrested because of the fact that they were calling on Twitter for new demonstrations. So as Mr. Dava said, it's and I think.
But can I just bring something up? I remember a time here in France where the president didn't like a certain TV anchor and had him removed. So Turkey isn't the only European country where there is pressure on the media, is there? It does happen elsewhere as well.
But yes, but France is not in one of the countries in the world where you have the highest numbers of journalists that have been sentenced to jail, and Turkey is one of these countries.
Okay, let's bring in Ziya Miral. Is Erdogan an autocrat, plain and simple?
Look, there are ways to understand Turkey which would be correct. There are ways to criticize Turkey and criticize Erdogan government which would be correct. However, then there are other ways that actually it is ridiculous. For example, anyone at this stage who's still talking about Turkey within a prism of Islamists versus secularists is fundamentally wrong. Yes, the election results are not necessarily 50% of the public, but all of the public opinion polls are still showing to 50% for AKP, more than 60% of support across the public, not just electoral database, for Erdogan. Similarly, yes, the television channels were quite late, a day late, to actually broadcast the events, and they paid the price for it by Turkish public reaction. But there was no censorship of the print media or social media, and foreign correspondents and so many other independent television channels were broadcasting live. So let us criticize Turkey, let us criticize Erdogan. For example, when one of our friends here said that nobody was talking about Erdogan's crimes before, Europe just turned a blind eye, it's categorically false. Every year we have European Commission reports. Turkey has been condemned again and again. Turkey passed so many reform packages. Even the issue of arrested journalists has been on newspapers every single day. So the point is this, let us criticize Turkey, let us criticize Erdogan, let us criticize failures of AKP, but please, let's not do that by arguments that are 10 years late.
Okay, Ziya Miral, thanks very much. We're going to have to hold it there for a moment. We have to take a short break. When we come back,
issue was last year.
Okay.
Not 10 years old.
When we come back, we'll have the international headlines and you'll get to make your point in the second part of our debate. Stay with us.
Could the spillover from Syria's civil war push Lebanon over the edge? Beirut's Martyrs Square is 1 hour from the border. Hezbollah's decision to actively join the fight there, a turning point for this multi-confessional nation that still bears the scars of civil war.
Don't miss this exceptional debate in English, French and Arabic on France 24.